A very good evening and welcome to the national broadcast. I'm Malsha Dharmavardhana.
Good evening, I'm Lakshya Singha, and to start off, we take a quick look at the headlines for tonight. The Gazette notification on the appointment of Ajit Manna Peruma to the parliamentary seat left vacant by Ranjan Ramanayaka has been issued. Charges levelled against the opposition leader for publicising a false opinion over the abolition of the parliamentary seat of Ranjan Ramanayaka. The two individuals who snatched off the crown of the Mrs. Sri Lanka granted with police bail. A new cricket selection committee.
On to those and other stories in detail now, starting with your local stories. Former parliamentarian Ajit Manna Peruma have been appointed to the parliamentary seat left vacant by Ranjan Ramanayaka. The relevant Gazette notification was issued by the Election Commission today. The relevant appointment was made in accordance to the provision provided under the paragraph 13B of Article 99 of the Constitution to fill a parliamentary seat vacancy. This appointment has been made in accordance to a notification directed to the Elections Commission by the Secretary General of the Parliament under Section 64(1) of the Parliamentary Election Act No. 1 of 1981, that a vacancy have been occurred following the abolition of the parliamentary seat of Ranjan Ramanayaka, who was declared elected as a member of the parliament for the electoral district No. 2 Gampaha under the Section 62 of the same Act. Ranjan Ramanayaka entered the parliament as a Gampaha district parliamentarian after winning a parliamentary seat in the previous general election. According to the results of the previous parliamentary election, Ajit Manna Peruma led the Samagi Jana Balawegaya preferential vote list in the district.
Meanwhile, a tense situation erupted in the parliament today due to the remarks exchanged over the abolition of Ranjan Ramanayaka's parliamentary seat. Accordingly, Speaker Mahinda Rupavahini postponed the parliamentary proceedings by 5 minutes. At the beginning of the parliamentary proceedings today, Speaker Mahinda Rupavahini made a statement regarding the statement delivered by opposition leader Sajith Premadasa at the parliament yesterday. Addressing the parliament yesterday, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa said that the Secretary General of Parliament had informed the Election Commission that the parliamentary seat of Ranjan Ramanayaka has been abolished as he has failed to request leave for his duties. Rejecting the statement of the opposition leader, the Speaker emphasized that the parliamentary seat of Ranjan Ramanayaka was abolished within constitutional provisions based on a court ruling. While the Speaker and the opposition leader continued to exchange views in this regard, a tense situation arose within the premises following the remarks made by parliamentarian Sarath Fonseca. Parliamentarian Sarath Fonseca said that he can recall the way he was ill-treated while detaining him in remand custody for a period of 8 months. He said that he was never permitted to attend the parliamentary proceedings during this period. In response, Minister Chamal Rajapaksa said that he came forward to obtain permission for parliamentarian Sarath Fonseca to attend the parliament at that time.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa had decided to ban importation of palm oil with immediate effect as the consumption of crude palm oil has adverse effects on public health, according to the President's media division. The experts in medical field and dietitians have repeatedly pointed out that the consumption of food processed using crude palm oil is a major pathogen as per the statement issued by the President Media Division. However, standard palm oil varieties are used on products of biscuits, confectionery and some bakery products. The variant bearing harmonized system code 1511-9010 is an example. It is commonly known as palm stearine. The President's media division has indicated that No prohibition has been imposed on the importation of this variety for use in the production of relevant food item. After the current government's coming into power, the importation of ethanol, which had been severely criticized in the recent past, was completely halted. But ethanol is allowed to be imported for surgical purposes. The same goes for the permission to import palm stearine. Researchers have revealed that oil palm cultivation can lead to long-term adverse environmental effects such as depletion of water resources and soil infertility. Therefore, about 6 months ago, after the current government's arrival to power, the president instructed to stop the cultivation of oil palm trees. The existing oil palm cultivation is planned to be phased out at a rate of 10% at the time, and those lands are planned to be replaced with rubber or other eco-friendly cultivations.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa paid homage to the sacred tooth relic at the historic Temple of the Tooth in Kandy and obtained blessings yesterday morning. The president also conversed with the people who had come to pay homage to the sacred Temple of the Tooth. The President called on the Chief Prelate of the Asgiriya chapter, Most Venerable Varakagoda Sri Gnanaratna Thera, at the official monastery at the Temple of the Tooth premises and inquired into his well-being. Member of the Karaka Sangha Sabha of the Asgiriya Mahavihara, Chief Incumbent of the Badulu Mutiyangana Raja Mahavihara, Venerable Dr. Muruddeniye Dhammaratana Thera was also present at the occasion. The Nayaka Theras commended the President for his efforts to restore the old prosperity in the villages by visiting difficult areas every week. President Rajapaksa pointed out that the villages could not be developed without ensuring a higher standard of living to the rural people, adding that the government is committed to uplift the condition of the rural people by promoting agriculture. Restrictions were imposed on imports to provide opportunity to cultivate all the crops that could be grown locally and redirect the flows of money that went to foreign farmers to our own farmers. Every land fit for cultivation is planned to be used for agriculture. President Rajapaksa noted that steps are being taken to increase the yield as well as to attract the younger generations to the agriculture field by introducing new technology to the farming community. The country could face the COVID-19 pandemic successfully owing to the proper procedure followed by the government during the crisis. President Rajapaksa pointed out that today progress could be witnessed in every field and a development program that focuses on the future of the country is in motion. He added that a number of steps have been taken to uplift the tea industry, which is considered a symbol of prosperity, by providing relief to tea planters. The Mahasangha stressed the need to work together to resolve conflicts and move the country forward. The President was received by Diyawada Nilame Nilangadala at the Temple of the Tooth. Thereafter, the President visited the Malwatu Mahavihara and obtained the blessings from the Most Venerable Tibbatuave Sri Sumangala Mahanayaka Thera. The President also called on the Deputy Chief Prelate of Malwatu Chapter, Most Venerable Dibul Kumbure Vimaladhamma Thera, and inquired about his well-being. The President instructed the Sri Lanka Navy to expeditiously complete the renovation of the Sangha Vasaya, the residence of the Deputy Chief Prelate. The chief incumbent of the Gatambe Rajopavanarame, Venerable Kappetiyagoda Sri Vimalathera, chanted Set Pirit and blessed President Rajapaksa when he arrived at the temple. The Nayakathera presented a copy of his biography titled Yativara Hadavata Vinivida Dutimi, which was compiled to mark his 90th birthday, to the President. Former head of the Department of Political Science, University of Peradeniya, Professor R.A.W. Ranasinghe has compiled the book honouring the Nayakathera's national, religious and social contribution to the country. The President also called on the Deputy Chief Prelate of the Asgiriya chapter, Shastrapati Pandita Most Venerable Anamaduwe Dhammadasi Nayakathera, and the Nayakathera blessed the President to have strength and courage to succeed the journey ahead despite obstacles. Later, the President visited the Asgiriya Gedige Rajamahvihara and paid a courtesy call on the chief incumbent of the temple, Shastrapati Pandita Most Venerable Vedaruwe Upali Anunayakathera, and engaged in a cordial discussion.
Governor of Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Professor Taplivdi Lakshman says the Monetary Board has reached a decision to take measures in continuing with the current accommodative monetary policy stance to assist and sustain the economic growth trajectory in the country, considering the macroeconomic conditions and expect developments on the domestic and global fronts. He made these remarks while addressing the monetary policy review held at the central bank premises today.
As you are aware, the central bank is on a monetary easing cycle for almost 2 years by now. The subdued growth prevailed in 2019 was exacerbated by the outbreak of the pandemic in 2020. The latter episode warranted monetary easing on an unprecedented scale, alongside fiscal policy support. Such intervention by the central bank through measures such as policy rate reductions and large liquidity injections have helped many businesses and individuals to avoid severe hardships which they would have otherwise been compelled to experience if left to themselves in the market under the most trying conditions that were prevailing. We are beginning to see the impact of these bold policy measures as reflected in the sharp turnaround in economic activity, favorable developments in employment and income conditions of people, improving credit conditions helping in economic revival, and faster than expected rebound in a number of high-frequency economic indicators. Since we met last month for the second monetary policy review, some important data points became available. One such key piece of information was the GDP growth rate for 2020, which turned out to be less severe than initially projected in the backdrop of the pandemic. The contraction of the Sri Lankan economy in 2020 was 3.6% as per the Department of Census and Statistics. The economy rebounded notably in the second half of 2020 compared to the contraction in the first half of 2020. Another noteworthy development was the rising pace of credit growth to the private sector, supported by low lending rates, surplus liquidity, and the measures taken by the central bank and the government to promote credit to the needy sectors of the economy at affordable costs. Various measures being taken by the government to improve the investment environment and ease of doing business, as well as certain important structural developments, including the Port City Development Program, have all helped hand in hand with monetary easing measures to improve investments and growth prospects. We expect this year to end up with 5.5 to 6% growth in the backdrop of the above negative growth of 2020. The Monetary Board noted the need to continue the monetary policy support to the above by helping the trend of declining lending rates, which are crucial in supporting the capital formation in the post-pandemic recovery. This trend reinforces our commitment to maintaining single-digit interest rate structure in the period ahead, while supporting the novel economic model being adopted in promoting a domestic production-driven economy with special focus on exports and other forms of non-debt-creating foreign exchange inflows. The economy so developing will be able to become resilient against international shocks. Let me reaffirm the central bank and the government remain committed to maintaining the country's conditions of external stability. Measures being implemented in the promotion of real sector activities to expand non-debt creating inflows, commodity exports, services exports including tourism, overseas worker remittances, foreign direct investments, foreign portfolio inflows, etc., assisted by restrained levels of imports, are important factors of the new approach to external sector stability. In addition, the central bank and the government are in continued engagement with investment and lending partners in the region as well as outside, bilateral as well as multilateral.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has stated that a robust national health system will be implemented benefiting all the people, irrespective of their social status, and that will cover all parts of the country. The President made these remarks participating as the chief guest at the inaugural day of the 43rd Annual Academic Session of the Kandy Society of Medicine held in Kandy yesterday. President Rajapaksa urged to present new ideas to achieve this goal within a short period of time. As outlined in the Vistas of Prosperity and Splendor policy framework, ensuring a healthy nation is one of the foremost goals of the government. President Rajapaksa stressed the need for the entire healthcare community, including doctors and other healthcare professionals, to work with the government to identify and address long-term problems. He said that during his visits to villages in 17 districts to attend the discussion with the village program, he was able to first-hand experience the numerous problems faced by the rural and estate community.
As outlined in the Vistas of Prosperity and Splendor, my policy document, the central policy framework of our government ensuring a healthy nation is one of our foremost goals. We must build a national healthcare system in which Sri Lankans of all backgrounds and in all parts of the country have access to healthcare at a decent standard. We will need new and innovative initiatives to ensure this in a short span of time. Sri Lanka already has a very successful, internationally recognized healthcare initiatives in the form of the public health midwife program, I think. It has significantly lowered maternal and infant mortality throughout the country for decades. There are many lessons that can be learned from this program in implementing new initiatives to improve public health as well. For example, it may be possible to devise a system where qualified nurses are trained and deployed to existing primary health care units. Equipped with the facilities needed to go from village to village, these nurses could cater to at least some of the basic health care needs of people in these communities. This is just an idea. Such public health nurses should be trained and equipped to test basic indicators related to common non-communicable diseases, as well as to identify other potential ailments early. Then they can refer patients needing medical advice to doctors serving in nearby areas. It may also be possible to use new technologies such as telemedicine to connect doctors and patients in these instances. Through such practical, targeted, systemic measures, it will be possible to make significant, long-lasting changes to the quality of life of people throughout Sri Lanka. These are matters to which you, as members of the medical community, need to give your urgent but considered attention.
The annual academic session of the Kandy Medical Association will conclude tomorrow. In this session, studies on new findings and experience of experts will be extensively explored. Central Province Governor Lalit U. Gamage and State Minister Channa Jayasumana were present at the occasion. Mrs. World Caroline Jury and former model Chula Padmendra were released on police bail after obtaining signatures on a bond. They were released after notifying them to appear before Colombo Magistrate Courts on the 19th of April. Both Mrs. World Caroline Jury and former model Chula Padmendra were taken into custody in accordance to a complaint lodged at the Cinnamon Gardens police station for allegedly uncrowning Mrs. Sri Lanka Pushpika De Silva forcefully during the finals of the Mrs. Sri Lanka competition. Both the parties arrived at the Cinnamon Gardens police station at 10:30 a.m. following a summoning notice issued by the police. Accordingly, both the suspects were taken into custody on the charges of inflicting minor injuries and criminal intimidation. They were released on police bail at 4 p.m. today.
You're watching the national broadcast and we continue with more local stories. Minister Pavitra Vanniyarachchi says steps will be taken to administer the second dose of AstraZeneca vaccine for those who have obtained the first dose in accordance to the relevant time frame from April 23rd. AstraZeneca vaccine has been administered to 924,758 people in the country thus far. The epidemiology unit has indicated that 2,469 Chinese nationals in the country have been administered with the Sinopharm vaccine at present. The Ministry of Health has indicated that all passengers arriving from abroad to the country should adhere to the guidelines recently issued by the Ministry of Health. The number of recoveries from COVID-19 have reached to 91,044. It is a percentage of 96.59. Another 2,618 patients are undergoing treatment. Another 260 COVID-19 patients were detected in the island today. Among them, 257 belong to the Paliagoda COVID cluster, while 3 of them were reported from the prison COVID cluster. New Zealand temporarily suspended entry for all travellers from India today, including its own citizens, for about 2 weeks following a high number of positive coronavirus cases arriving from the South Asian country.
New Zealand has temporarily banned all travellers from India after a surge of imported COVID-19 cases from the country. The move comes after New Zealand recorded 23 new coronavirus cases on Thursday, 17 of which were from India. New Zealand had virtually eliminated the virus from its borders and hasn't reported local transmissions for over a month. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern announced the ban Thursday, which will apply to anyone who has been in India over the past 2 weeks. The first time such a ban will include New Zealanders as well.
This will take effect from 4 p.m. on the 11th of April, this Sunday. That allows us time to draft the legal orders that will be required. This temporary suspension will remain in place till the 28th of April.
India has reported nearly 13 million cases of COVID-19, the third highest tally in the world after the United States and Brazil, and it's currently battling an even harsher second wave of the disease. New Zealand has implemented testing requirements to reduce the number of imported COVID-19 cases, but Ardern added that has not helped with the surge from India. New Zealand also reported 1 new locally infected case on Thursday, an employee at a coronavirus isolation facility.
And in more stories from home, Ministry of Wildlife and Forest Conservation says that the Wild Elephant Management Reserve in Hambantota will be gazetted during this week. These remarks were made during the Sustainable Development Dialogue organized by the Ministry of Mass Media and National Development Media Centre. Secretary to the Ministry of Wildlife and Forest Conservation, Somaratna Vidhanapatirana, said that the approval for the declaration of Wild Elephant Management Reserve in Hambantota has been granted by the legal draftsman. He said that the ministry will be able to declare the reserve within this week as necessary measures have been taken in this regard. Secretary to the Ministry of Environment, Dr. Anil Jasinghe, also shared remarks at this occasion. Secretary to the Ministry of Environment, Dr. Anil Jasinghe, said that the country is expected to face a shortage in sand and soil within the next couple of years. He said that the main reason for such shortage is the mining carried out while harming the environment. Accordingly, he said that the main alternative would be the use of ocean sand. However, he said that the public is skeptic over the quality of the sand rather. He added that the sand obtained from the ocean is at good quality. He also said that the sand can be obtained from the discarded building material, as many countries utilize such quantities of sand to fulfill their necessary sand requirements. He said that the relevant authorities are in the move to find a possibility to establish a plant to produce such sand in the country to fulfill necessary requirements. Police media spokesman DIG Ajit Rohana said that legal action will be taken on media reports regarding environmental damages following prompt investigations.
The PETA floating trade complex in Colombo was reopened today after reconstruction. During the period of the government of good governance, it has been temporarily closed down without any proper maintenance. It was declared open on the 25th of August 2014 according to the concept of the then Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Due to the negligence of the previous regime, 80% of the trade stores have been closed down. The government has spent 35 million rupees on the reconstruction. Further development activities are taking place with regard to the installation of a water purification system, construction of a pedestrian crossing, a construction of a path between DR Vijayawardena Mawatha and the floating trade complex. In addition, several other services have been proposed in line with the project, including introduction of a machine to purify the water in Beri Lake and the commencement of a ferry service. Minister Gamini Lokuge, State Minister Nalaka Godeheva, MPs Premanath C. Dolawatta, Yadamini Gunawardena and Colombo Mayor Rosi Senanayaka were present at this occasion.
Secretary to the President P.B. Jayasundara says that the program to streamline the tax system into a more simple and efficient system and to provide reliefs for the business community under the Vistas of Prosperity policy statement has already been initiated. He further said that the initiative to increase the state revenue under the program is expected to be implemented in the near future. Proposed tax reforms to the Inland Revenue Act and value-added tax received the approval of the Parliament and the Cabinet of Ministers recently. Accordingly, a seminar was organized this morning to brief on the proposed tax reforms introduced through the budget of 2020-2021 for the general public and relevant stakeholders. More than 200 participants representing high tax-paying public took part in the seminar, while more than 500 participants joined through online video platforms. Secretary to the President, Dr. P.B. Jayasundara, said that the gap between revenues should be reduced as a percentage of the production in order to minimize the obtaining of loans. He said that under the Vistas of Prosperity, the budget deficit of the entire process remains at 10% and plans have been made to reduce it to 4% by 2025. He added that the government policy is to come up with mechanisms to improve the taxation, increase the national production and assist the businesses and entrepreneurs who are engaged in the production process. He also added that the banking and financial institutions should be prepared to direct the country towards a low interest rate system, allowing the institutions to increase investments and provide investors and businessmen with financial assistance at low, stable interest rates within the next 5 years. This ceremony was organized in parallel to the celebrations of the 89th anniversary of the Inland Revenue Department, which was held on the 2nd of this month. Secretary to the Ministry of Finance S.R. Artigala and Commissioner General of Inland Revenue Department HMWC Bandara were also present at the occasion. And that's all the stories for tonight. We'll see you tomorrow at the very same time. Good night.
Good night.